Hola! We are in the Andes Mountains of Peru. Right now I'm walking in the heart of the Inca Empire, along an Inca terrace here.
David!
Hey, Eileen!
Hey! Potatoes!
What about potatoes?
In Pisac!
What about...
I'll let you know.
Huh.
Join us in South America where we're building...
It's not the easiest approach.
Stomping...
What am I doing?
And running. Hayancho Kashanki.
Our journey takes us to the cradle of the mighty Incan Empire, high atop the mountains of Peru. It's here where the innovative Inca culture left its mark more than 500 years ago, through its extraordinary road network, its advanced irrigation systems, and through its architecture, spectacular temples and massive stone structures.
This is the magnificent wall of the 6 monoliths at the ruins of Ollantaytambo. When the Spanish invaders first saw this, they thought it was built by giants. But the Inca people, human beings, are the ones that built this. And Barbara Henschel of Chanute, Kansas wants to know, how did they do it?
How did the Incas build their temples? Like here at Sacsayhuaman, where stones weighing up to 100 tons were raised up and pieced together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Incredible, considering all of this was built without the help of iron tools and before this culture had use of the wheel.
But that we have received from our ancestors.
While the Inca Empire was known for its architectural feats, it was also renowned for its sophisticated system of government. But this magnificent civilization probably could not have existed without a simple device called a quipu. You see, the empire was huge, 2,500 miles in length with 40,000 miles of paved roads. But officials needed a way to keep track of the empire's vast resources. So, the Inca devised a system of relay runners called chasquis who traveled the roads with messages. And that's where the quipus came in. The Inca people had no written language and no way of writing numbers. So they'd use an intricate system of knots and strings to take inventory of objects of value, like the amount of corn available to eat or the number of people in a town. The chasquis would carry these quipus from town to town, relaying the information to government centers. I wanted to give the life of a chasqui a try, so I decided to find out if there were enough potatoes in the town of Pisac for David to do his next segment.
But until a few hours ago, I didn't know how to read the quipu, so I had to find an expert.
And I found Elba Torres, a cultural anthropologist with the Instituto Nacional de Cultura at Machu Picchu.
One thing I don't understand is how a bunch of strings and knots called a quipu can send a message. How is that?
Well, quipu means knot tying in Quechua. And we have a decimal system that indicates the ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. And with this we can determine by a system of knot tying the amount that we may have.
So, the quipu is based on the decimal system, which is kind of cool for an ancient culture to have. You see, they had singles, tens, hundreds, and thousands. Adelante.
So, based on how many knots are tied on each string, we can figure out how many objects we have. But you don't have to tie 250 knots to indicate 250 things. There is a system based on how many knots are tied and how those knots are tied.
Okay, so if I want to get 250 out of this one, how would I do that?
Well, we are going to take first the place values of ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. We want to tie 2 knots in the hundreds place. This first one would make 100.
Can I do that?
Claro. Sure.
So then I tie another one. Do I tie it on, right on top?
Yes.
Okay. So that's, okay, so that's 200.
200.
Okay, then you go to the one with the tens?
Just 5 knots.
5? Okay. So that is 1.
Instead of tying knots right on top of each other, to indicate hundreds, we tie knots farther apart in a row to indicate tens. Different arrangements of knots on a string indicate different place values.
So that's 250. Is this the way the quipus looked way back when?
No, this is a modern quipu. But in the Incan times, we had simple or primitive quipus made of one color and quipus of different colors. And the person who read the quipu was called quipu camayo.
Quipu camayo. So that was his job?
Yes, it was his job.
And even though the Inca didn't write down the color code for their quipus, scientists have theories about what the colors might mean.
Red represented soldiers, purple represented chieftains, yellow represented corn, but some scientists also say that it represented gold.
Why didn't they know the difference?
Well, you can't tell the difference. It depends on the person who reads the quipu. But in the times of the Inca, corn was more important to them.
I know I'm going to get a message on here in reference to potatoes. Is there any color here that indicates potatoes?
No, not in the quipus that we have here. But there could be one that represented only potatoes.
So, like, for example, the person that made the quipu, would they say, okay, this quipu is for potatoes?
Sí.
Oh, okay. So, they told me that this quipu counts the amount of potatoes that are in Pisac. They made it so they should know. Well, I could count all these strings and it would tell me, or I could just count the one summation chord. Let's see, it's got 100. Okay, there are enough potatoes. David, I'm a-comin'.
Whether you're in Peru or Peoria, if you've got a question, write us at Newton's Apple, Box 1400, 172 East 4th Street, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55101, USA.
David.
Eileen, what happened to you? You look exhausted.
Potatoes.
Potatoes?
Pisac.
Potatoes in Pisac?
Go.
Should I lead you? Are you okay? Okay.
It's not surprising there are plenty of potatoes in Pisac. That's because potatoes...
Hey, you like my new sweater? Bet you can't guess what it's made from. I'll give you a hint. It's very warm and very soft. Did you guess llama? Well, you're very close. It's actually alpaca.
Llamas and their close cousin alpacas are domesticated South American relatives of the camel. For thousands of years, they've thrived on the steep slopes of the Andean mountains. They've been used as pack animals, for their meat, but perhaps most importantly, for their fiber. In fact, the alpaca produces some of the world's most elegant and desirable wool. And for centuries, Andean weavers have used the alpaca wool to create beautiful textile masterpieces.
Para acá, vamos.
Here in La Raya, Professor Jorge Flores of the University of Cusco showed me around this research center where llamas and alpacas are raised.
Professor Flores, these two animals look very similar to me. What's the difference between a llama, a llama, and an alpaca?
The gray one we have here is an alpaca, and the brown one over there is a llama. We can easily tell the difference between them. For example, by height. The llama is taller, the alpaca is shorter. The llama's neck is longer than the alpaca's. You can also tell by the shape of the animal. The back of the llama is flatter, and the alpaca's back is a little more curved.
I noticed that their lips look exactly like camel lips.
Yes, the lip is split. That allows them to graze by cutting the grass without pulling it. That is another advantage, let's say, over sheep. When sheep graze, they pull the grass, but llamas and alpacas cut the grass. Therefore, they don't contribute to soil erosion. Also, their feet have pads like small cushions. They don't have hooves. Therefore, they don't harm the ground when they walk.
What are some other differences between the animals? I know that we use their fiber
to make, the sweaters. And what's the different uses between the llamas and the alpacas?
Well, the biggest difference is the quality of the fibers. The fibers of the llama have longer and tougher strands, which make them difficult to work with. By contrast, the fibers of the alpaca are softer, finer. They have more oil. The texture is different. You can notice by touching it.
Oh, yeah, this one's much softer.
It's softer because it has more oil, and the strands are also more delicate. Instead, the strands are coarser on the llama, and the fiber has a type of covering that makes it tougher.
So this fiber would be a more expensive fiber because it's softer?
At this time, yes. The alpaca is bred for its fiber.
Está blanquita.
It feels like cotton. And by the time the animal is 10 months old, it's ready for its first shearing. All of this wool is enough to make about one sweater. And fortunately for this little guy, his hair will grow back in about a year.
¿Y qué vamos a hacer ahora?
Scientists at this research facility keep close tabs on the young alpaca's growth. It's all being done so researchers can determine the best habitat and care for the llamas and the alpacas. So these long-time Peruvian animals will continue to thrive and provide for the people of this land, just as they've done for centuries before. We hope you've enjoyed this journey to Peru and to the land of the Inca.